Look, they always keep the best to last, so you're reliably informed, Minister. Listen, questions 7, 8, 9 and 10. 2 refer to University Hospital Waterford and cardiac services at the hospital, and 2 of the questions refer to the National Review of Specialist Cardiac Care. In relation to questions 7 and 8, the questions specifically are in relation to interim measures which were to be put in place to support cardiac care at University Hospital Waterford. So when Professor Herity published his report, as you know, he recommended that the existing single lab that's in place would have its capacity increased by 20%. You're aware of that, Minister? That was a recommendation from Professor Herity, that the existing lab would be increased in capacity terms by 20%.
Yes, I am.
That didn't happen. We're 20 months down the road. 20 months since Professor Herity made his recommendation, and not one single minute of additional time has been put in place. And what we're hearing is that there are difficulties in relation to recruitment.
Yes.
But why does it take so long for that information to get to us and to get to patients? And why would it take 20 months for this to go on and no resolution to the issue? It's breathtaking that it would take so long, point number 1. In relation to the modular lab, which is the second question, and whether a modular lab will be put in place, I was one of a number of Oireachtas members that had met with the general manager of the hospital, and I've also met with the lead consultants, the cardiac consultants. They're telling us that increasing the hours of the existing lab actually is not going to make much difference, and it's throwing good money after bad, and it's not really what's required. What's required is a modular lab. And in your response, you say that your department is examining proposals at your request. Now, it was 4 months ago when we first met with you as a group of Oireachtas members and the modular lab was discussed. It was 2 months ago since we last met, and we're still at a point where there are proposals being examined. How long does it take? Why does it take so long for that to be examined? And so the questions I have specifically for you is, can you at this point commit to deploying a modular lab? And if you cannot commit at this point, why not? Because whatever about the National Review and that being a matter of policy, and you want that to be underpinned by clinical and medical evidence, and there is a National Review which will take a considerable time, and I'll get to my question on that just in 1 second, it would not be a matter of fundamental policy shift to deploy a modular lab, because we have a mobile lab that's there at the moment. And as you know, the mobile lab has reduced diagnostic angiograms in terms of wait times, but the effect of that is that the wait times for interventions has gone up considerably, because 30% of those who are diagnosed will need an intervention. So we're solving one problem, but we're creating another problem over here. We're increasing wait times for interventions. So it makes sense to put a modular lab in that can do both interventions and diagnostic angiograms. And there's no reason, good reason, that I can see why that cannot be done. And I can't understand why it's taken so long to get to a point where we still can't get a commitment from the Minister. In relation to the National Review, the question I asked was specifically around public consultation. So it does say the public consultation will start in June. There will be a 2-month public consultation element to it. Precisely what does that mean? If you can explain to people who will be interested in this, people who will want to make submissions. When will the information be up and running? It talks about a website. When will it be known to the public when and where they make their views known? If you can answer that question. And my last question is in relation to the timescale. It says 18 months. A commitment was given to Oireachtas members in the South East if it could be done by 12 months. You do note in your response, written response, that all of the key targets have been met to date. Is that an indication that we could have a report earlier than 18 months? And if you can answer those questions. But there's 2 separate questions. One is in relation to what's happening at the hospital at the moment and interim measures, and the second is in relation to the National Review.
Thank you very much, Deputy Cullinane.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy, for the questions. So I'll take the National Review first. Obviously, the National Review is independent. You'd rightly raise legitimate criticisms of me if it wasn't. So I have asked Professor Philip Nolan, President of NUI Maynooth, to head that up. I will, though, convey to Professor Nolan the need just for an update note that I can furnish to you and other representatives about kind of concrete measures for the public consultation. My understanding is that it's going to begin next month, and my understanding is that it will be well advertised and publicised how your constituents and others can make a view in relation to that. I also know that Professor Nolan Roland was eager that the national review will be a truly national review. It won't have all its meetings in Dublin or anything like that. It will travel around the country, will meet with interested stakeholders, and also does have, as you know, within its membership, it does have patient reps through the Irish Heart Foundation. So a very different model to the one that we've previously used before. I did write to the chair, to the very best of mine. I did write to the chair saying that you have 18 months, but if you could do it quicker, we'd be very pleased. But I am conscious of speed and accuracy working side by side. But if you could do it within 12 months, I'd be delighted. But it does have 18 months to conclude its work. In relation to the issue of the interim measures, look, I think some of your comments are fair and legitimate. I did make a decision, as you know, to deploy a mobile lab. You've acknowledged the progress that made in one area of the waiting lists. I then made a further decision to extend that mobile lab, and now I've extended it further. I'm a little bit frustrated, to be honest, that I've had to extend it further, because what I would have rather done is exactly what you suggested. I would have rather been able to provide the additional hours which Professor Herity recommended in his report, and which we have funded through the estimates process, so that the actual existing cath lab could be open more hours. That was my preference.
Have you spoken to management at the hospital and consultants who operate this service? Because the lead cardiac consultant is saying that extending the hours of the existing lab by a couple of hours a day will not make any material difference in terms of wait times.
Well, there you go now. I mean, doesn't that tell you something? I mean, the reality of the situation is, if we're trying to recruit more people into the health service based on an independent clinical report, that's what we should be following. And we have a situation where we have an independent report done by a very eminent professor. I know the people of the South East don't agree with it in terms of the 24/7 piece, but just decouple them for a moment. He does talk about your existing cath lab having better equipment and opening longer. That's surely something people in the South East would welcome, and I know you would too, and I know you've made that point. It is a source of frustration that the recruitment process hasn't progressed satisfactorily, and I have asked the HSE to talk to the hospital and outline why that is the case. In relation to a modular lab, I am giving this very serious consideration. I do see the logic in it, but it isn't quite as straightforward as understandably you presented on behalf of...
Why not? Can you tell us why it is?
I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. Firstly, there are other parts of this country that don't have cath lab facilities even of the standard that you have in Waterford. So the idea that you put one modular lab here, what about the other parts of the country that actually perhaps have a longer waiting list and are there? How can we tell people in the northwest, you wait till after the national review, but the people in the southeast can have a modular lab? So that's just an issue I need to analyse and look at the facts, and I have my department doing some work on that. Second issue is the issue of staffing. Can the modular lab be staffed, come with staffing? It's a legitimate issue. And the third is the turnaround time for putting a modular lab in. Certainly some of the indications that I've heard from some local representatives don't tally with the timeline that I'm hearing from the HSE as to how long it would take to put a modular lab in place. But what I will do, and I'll give you a commitment now, what I will do in the next couple of weeks, I will arrange to meet with representatives of the South East.
And I thank the Minister for his responses, but again, just one final contribution is, you may be right on a turnaround for a modular lab, but it's 20 months since Professor Herity made his report, and you're referring back to his recommendation of additional time, and you're saying you're frustrated that the additional capacity hasn't been put in. So that turnaround hasn't been very impressive. 20 months. So for patients in the South East tend to hear, well, the Minister is saying that we may have a difficulty putting a modular lab in because of turnaround, and yet it's been 20 months and no progress has been made on the additional hours. It shouldn't take, if the decision was taken 4 months ago to do this, we would have been 4 months ahead of ourselves. The problem is you haven't made the decision yet, Minister. So it's only at the point when you make, it's only at the point when you make the decision that then there's a possibility of a turnaround. There's no possibility at the moment because no decision has been made. Have you made a decision to deploy one?
No, and you know I haven't. I've just
exactly. So that means then, how can there be any problems with a turnaround?
The criticism, well, you see, because you're conflating 2 issues. The criticism would be valid if I'd done nothing in the 20 months. So the criticism would be valid if Professor Herity had reported and it gathered dust and sat on a shelf. That's not what's happened.
But he didn't ask for a mobile lab.
It's resulted in a national review, which, in fairness, all representatives of the South East on a cross-party basis have bought into. It's resulted in a mobile lab being deployed and staying much longer than was intended due to the recruitment challenges. And now it's resulting in me trying to bottom out the issue of a modular lab. So I understand and share the frustrations of the people of the South East. I will meet with representatives on a cross-party basis in the next few weeks, at which stage I'll try and have bottomed out this issue.
Thank you very much.